I think where we're at now is if Trey play, first of all, Trey's got to have, he's not going to get any run except in the preseason for, definitive run. I mean, he
Hmm.
might get run, but he's definitely going to get run and playing time in the preseason. The question is this: if he plays poorly in the preseason, the Niners will not want him, most likely, and nobody else will want to trade for him. The question I would have is if he plays well in the preseason, will I really feel that other teams will want him, but will the 49ers want him? Because they obviously have made the decision, or at least have I gotta think that if the Albert Breers and all these different people are saying Darnold, 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 and putting Trey like, hey, he's behind Darnold, that on some level the 49ers have made an evaluation already before the preseason of Trey versus Darnold, and that it's Darnold.
Right.
And that's why all these people, national
Right.
insiders, are regurgitating this Darnold is the number two. So
Exactly.
the question is, if Trey plays poorly, I don't think the Niners want him, and I don't think anybody else will trade for him. And the Niners may have to just release him or move on. If Trey play, which is absolutely stunning in my mind, if Trey plays
I by the way,
well,
real quick, just to add in that situation, I don't think the Niners would release him or move on. I think they would just keep him on the roster for
and that's
17
the
games.
other question, is if how long if he's struggling, or if they don't believe in him as a player, will they keep him on the roster, and for how long, and for how, at what price, for how long? They have the ability to do it because the starter makes no money. So it's okay if you're paying your backup a lot of money, and maybe even your third string guy record setting money, but it
Right.
does create kind of like a what the heck's going on here kind of a deal if your third string inactive every single week quarterback
Right.
is getting paid a bigger check than both your starter and your number two guy
Right.
probably
Right.
combined. Combined.
Which the Niners were very sensitive to last year, right? When they brought back Jimmy Garoppolo, they brought that contract down where the base salary before all the incentives he got was below the base salary that Trey Lance got paid last year. So they wanted to create that hierarchy from a salary structure as well last year. So they were cognizant of this when they made moves in regard to this last year. Now, I think the thing with him and preseason and all of that, Larry, is that I don't know if he's necessarily right when Schefter said that there wasn't a trade market for him. I think it's more layered than it's like if I called up any team, like for example, let's pretend that I'm connected and I can just call up a team and ask them and they'll give me a straight answer. I'll be like, do you want Trey Lance? I think in a vacuum, most teams are not going to say no to getting another talented player, regardless of what's happened before in his career, right? Every team is always looking to take a chance and swing and miss on the next talented guy. I think, does that value match with the 49ers in a structure where the 49ers look at what they're recouping as a reasonable enough asset given everything they gave up for Trey Lance, and they look at it as more valuable than a quarterback given all the history of injuries they've had at quarterback versus what a team will be offering for Trey Lance? I mean, you and I went back and forth about this conversation a lot earlier in the offseason. I remember I told you I was quite skeptical on what teams would offer for Trey Lance just because the sample size is so low. He's such an enigma. It's very difficult. And I remember you bringing up picks like the 11th overall pick, Larry, the 35th overall pick, stuff like that. And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't see how that happens because he is such a prospect. And I think that's kind of where we are with this trade market, Larry. And here's my thing. I'm not sure if preseason is enough of a sample size to change that. That's my problem.
I mean, here's my question though, Vish. If he plays well and the other quarterbacks all play well, then what? Then other teams may like him, but would Trey playing well give the 49ers a belief in him as well and make him more viable? Or have they already decided that, the direction they want to go, and it's all just about, just upping his trade value? Have they already decided that they're trading him whenever anybody offers anything? Or if he played well enough for other teams to have interest, would the 49ers be like, well, wait a second. He's playing well. Let's keep him here. That's the part where it's like we need some answers on this. We don't really have any clarification on what exactly the 49ers, how they'll react to him playing poorly. I mean, and how they will react to him playing well. I do believe there'll be a market for him in a league where there's maybe 20 good quarterbacks or 15 good quarterbacks and there's 32 jobs. If he plays well, there'll be teams that will want him, and there will be teams that will come asking for him. But then will the 49ers rebuff them and decide that they want multiple number ones?
What do you think? What do you think they would do? You've been around the building. You've been there this entire offseason. What's the vibe you get?
Well, they only tell us how that they're never going to say anything that devalues the player. So like their true feelings have to be gleaned from observing their moves more than what they say. I mean, I could point to the presser where, hey, Kyle said this and he sounded positive, and John said that and he sounded positive, and I just heard Trent Williams sound real positive, and George Kittle says he looks better than ever, and everything's positive. But then why did a guy like Sam Darnold sign it before free agency? And what did they say to him to get him to come? And what did they say to Brandon Allen to be the number 4 guy?
He was a second stringer last year, right?
Yeah.
And
what
even
did
though
they
he
say
was
to
still
him?
there on the street, let me ask you this then, because this is how I see it. And I don't know if this is a fair estimation of what is fundamentally happening, with the 49ers quarterback group. I think a lot of people look at it and they always ask the question of what has changed with Trey, right? You and I started asking that question early in the offseason. And the answer to that question is always Brock. But to me, something changed with Trey independent of Brock last offseason, right? I think that's why Jimmy came back, and I think that's why Sam Darnold's here. A lot of people look at it as this is Trey versus Brock. No, I think Brock played well, and Brock established himself as a viable starting quarterback independent of their feelings of Trey Lance. To me, the reason why Trey Lance is competing with Sam Darnold is because something between the course of last offseason up till when he got hurt had them spooked, where he has not convinced them that he is a viable starter. To me, because if they looked at him as a viable starter and they had Brock, like, okay, sure, Brock's sample size allows him to be the starter. I'm not going to argue that. What I wouldn't expect is for Trey then to be competing with another guy, who they view as a highly talented prospect, and that other guy has started 55 games and basically washed up on 2 teams that gave him the opportunity to be the franchise guy, right? Like the Jets opened it up and said, Sam Darnold, you are our savior. Now, they put a lot of shit around him, but they did open it up for him like that, and it didn't work out. He didn't play great. The situation wasn't great. Carolina traded 3 picks. They picked up his 5th-year option before he played a snap for them, which guaranteed him $18 million the subsequent year, and they opened it up for him as the starter, right? And it didn't go well the first year, and then the second year, I guess he finished the season playing okay. I don't think he played that well. He played okay. He played, competent football, but
maybe his best. He might have played his best.
I think there's 25 different quarterbacks that would have went 4-2 with Carolina last year, the way they were running the football with Chuba Hubbard and Dante Foreman, okay? So, and that's where if they have that guy here, and it sounds like that guy is on even standings with the 3rd overall pick in the draft, like that doesn't add up, Larry. And to me, the answer to that is not, hey, Brock Purdy played great. No, the answer to that is the 2022 offseason for Trey Lance was not something that the 49ers wanted. It sounds like, to me, the best way I can describe what's going on is that the 2022 offseason, it spooked them. That's why Jimmy came back when he did. I continue to ask the question, if the 49ers had started 3-4 and they had the same debacle on Sunday Night Football against Denver, except it was Trey Lance running out the back of the end zone, do you think that Trey Lance would have continued and started that entire season?
No.
I don't know. 3-4, there was palpable tension after 0-1 in a monsoon against the Chicago Bears. Granted, that was the worst team in the NFL last year, but you know what I'm saying? So with Jimmy Garoppolo in the room, that's where I'm kind of skeptical about the entire outlook of Trey Lance from the 49ers. And a lot of people keep comparing it to Brock Purdy. I don't really care about where he is relative to Brock Purdy, because to me, even if Brock Purdy never emerged and let's say the 49ers season tanked with the Garoppolo injury last year, I don't think Trey Lance was going to get the same, we're going to open it up. It's going to be we're going to part the Red Sea Moses style, and you're going to be our starter again this year. I think he would have been in a competition with the Sam Darnold type, even if there was no Brock Purdy coming into this year. Heck, remember the reports and rumors that started that Jimmy Garoppolo was going to return, and how the relationship with Garoppolo was the best it's ever been, and Garoppolo was playing the best football of his career and all of that. Kawakami started speculating, and then he got hurt, and Brock Purdy showed up. But I need that conversation about Trey Lance to stop being about Brock Purdy, because there's something that's changed between their evaluation, what's gone on in the building, and how they wanted to develop him. There's something not right there. And to me, that has nothing to do with Brock Purdy emerging. Brock Purdy emerging actually is the get out of jail free card there. But I don't think that's the reason why we're here with him in a quarterback competition with Sam Darnold,
it really is interesting. I mean, and then if you go back to the Bears game, I mean, the rain came late, but there was no points in the first. The Niners only scored 10 points in that game, and I think only 3 points in the first half.
Debo did fumble at the 5-yard line, which hurt them.
Then you go back to the Houston game, and that the 49ers won 23-7. But if you go back to that game, the 49ers had 3 points at halftime in that game. So, I mean, yeah, they scored 20 in the second half. So basically we've had Trey. And then if you go back to the Arizona game, the other game that he started, let's see the Arizona game. The 49ers scored 0 in the first half and 10 points overall in that game.
Larry,
really, it may come down to, and there was no, that was his first NFL start. But once again, there's not a lot of points there, I mean, and then you're comparing that to an offense where the Niners averaged 33 points a game with Brock Purdy. So at the quarterback, and people say, well, there was CMC and this and then all the, people can play these games forever. And it's like, ultimately it comes down to points. You're an offense. You're trying to produce points. They didn't produce points in the Bear game. They didn't produce points in the first half of the Texans game. They didn't produce points. I mean, literally, no points.
Right.
So, I mean, and this is with Shanahan and still a team that has a lot of talent. So I think maybe that could be part of the on-field evaluation. And as far as the off-field thing, I don't know. I mean, how do they feel about Trey as a person? How do they feel? I mean, they say they say lots of great things about him. I don't know. I don't know how they feel about him. I don't have like an inside source that says, right, hey, in reality, they feel this way about him. I don't.
Right.
All I've got to go on is what they're doing, not really what they're. And I would say to anybody else, follow what Trey does. Follow what the Niners do. What Trey says doesn't mean anything. What the Niners say doesn't mean anything. You know what I'm saying? Let's get beyond what people say